it goes nowhere. But on second thought, having seen it again this afternoon, I realized that it covers a lot of very important ground, and that's why I was fond of it and why I programmed it. First, let's talk about the performers. Peter Simonishek was a co-star of Tony Erdmann, the 3-hour comedy that I didn't think was a comedy, but fascinated people a couple of years ago. He's a very well-known European television actor. And his counterpart is Jiří Menzel, who was one of the Czech New Wave filmmakers from the 1960s. Czechoslovakia, as you may know, was a Russian satellite, including, they were very liberal until 1968 when the Russians invaded with tanks into Prague. But before 1968, a lot of really interesting films by young filmmakers were made there. They had a thriving film industry. And the most notable was Milos Forman, who came to the LA and made films like Dangerous Liaison and Leaving Home and many others. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Was a really, landmark film director in the 70s. Didn't work much later on in his career, retired to Connecticut and passed away. Jiří Menzel directed Closely Watched Trains. Many of you may have seen that when you were kids. A much celebrated film in the 60s, and it won the Best Oscar for Best Foreign Film in 1961. So you're dealing with some pretty high-powered talent here, more so in Europe than in this country. But I programmed this film because, I'm a fan of what I call post-Holocaust films, where it's not about the luggage they carried or how many glasses were collected or the ovens or the smoke coming out of the chimneys. It's about what is the effect, the trauma carried forward from the Holocaust to those who survived it and those of us who perhaps were not closely connected to it other than morally or were Jewish or from Europe. There are any number of reasons, many Armenians feel close to it. As do many Rwandans. There are any number of reasons to connect to the Holocaust. So I think every culture has a reason for studying it. Jeff Ellison can chime in and talk about that beyond his own teaching experience. But I want to talk about why it's a post-Holocaust film. And that is because it deals with the effects of the Holocaust on survivors. And I can't stress too much how both the men in the film were survivors. None were in a camp, right? None were discriminated against since the war, yet both were very badly damaged. And the key line in the movie is, what makes you think it's any easier for the son of a Nazi than the son of a survivor to cope with that past? And the film, there are two central characters. I won't say it emphasizes one over the other, but it brings to light the moral dilemma of the descendants of Nazis. And here we see a man who was sort of denying it his whole life, denying the rudeness of his father, the distance of his father, and had a lot of work to do in terms of coming to terms with his own past and his own denial of his own past. And let's face it, you can't talk about the Holocaust, and you haven't been able to talk about it for 20 or 30 years unless you talked about memory. What is memory? What is memory to us? How does it translate the past? This focuses less on memory and more on trauma that's been inherited. Ali, the Jewish translator, lost his parents, whom he never saw. They put him into a convent where he learned his German and other languages, and had him baptized so that he couldn't be claimed by the Nazis, and the parents perished in the camp. So he never saw them again after they placed him in the monastery. So that's certainly a big trauma for a young child. And Simonishek knew his father, Georg, knew his father was a Nazi commandant. What jumped out at you? Anybody, that first meeting in the doorway of Georg's apartment, did any line jump out at anybody or any realization? Was there any character reveal in that first conversation when Ali, we see him traveling a distance from the airport to the apartment building, up the elevator, to the door, rings the doorbell, and Georg answers the phone. And I'll lead you up to the answer. Ali says, does Commandant Oberstumpfer, Commander, live here? He says, no, he's dead. Well, said, oh, I just thought I'd stop by. He killed my parents. And then what does Georg say? Anybody remember that?
Yeah. He killed many people. My father killed many people.
Killed many people, right. So let's stop right there and take that apart. What is Georg in denial about that Ali is not? He didn't kill Jews, he just killed people indiscriminately. They were faceless, they had no history, they had no families. That's part of the denial of the Holocaust. And of course, Ali, just he's ready to give up, even though we know he's packing a gun in his trench coat. What did you people feel when you saw him pack the gun in his trench coat? Or did it not get noticed? Susie, you're muted. Lower left corner. Oh, lower left, there you go.
Okay. Like many other people, like not Ali, the gentleman who was the son of the commandant.
Georg.
His denial was so deep inside of him. It wasn't until he spent all the time, I'm not going to go further than this question, but I don't think he was in denial. How many people do you think ever came to his door and said to him, I'm here because your father killed my parents?
Well, I think he mentioned there were others. People come looking for him all the time. Why should I talk to you? I think he acknowledged that in the scene.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah, I think so. But that's fine. The point is that he's dismissive and saying,
good word.
I don't own your trauma. I wasn't there.
Right.
He's staking out a debate territory that apologists for the Germans have for many years. And of course, if you were just a child at the time and thought your father came home a hero, you can be forgiven for believing that because that's the environment you grew up in. But years later, 40 years later, or 70 years later, and he was a teacher, so he was educated enough to know what had really happened. He'd insulated himself. And remember when Ali goes into the bathroom, first he asks to go to the bathroom and he sees an empty vodka bottle on the bathtub. That's what that was. It's all the indications. The guy drinks a lot. Why does he drink a lot? Because he's damaged. He's self-medicating. So he's carrying a lot of baggage. We don't exactly know what it is. We believe Papa is dead. And he sends the guy away. And Ali says, you're an anti-Semitic pig. And Georg says, you're a Zionist communist or something, whatever. It just ends in cliche. And of course, for the time being, Ali is satisfying himself by scratching a swastika on the mailbox and dropping the father's book off in the slot. It's one of those, I'll pee on the corner even though I didn't get to knock down the wall. That gesture I thought was quite cute, especially for a obviously meek and man who's not terribly expressive or outgoing. So I think the scene is set. So what did you people think when he goes back to his apartment, which I believe was, I'm not sure where it was. It was, the man was said to be from Austria. So Georg is in Vienna. That's where that apartment is. I suspect it's in Czechoslovakia or Slovakia or the Czech Republic now, where Ali lives. So when he gets a call, there's a man from Austria who's here to see you. How did you react to that? when he meets him in the bar. It's like Ali was done with it, but Georg obviously was not, because he sought out Ali. It's the publisher of the book following up on the inquiry from Ali. Where do I find the author? So how did you feel about that conversation in the bar? Mitch?
I just wanted to make a comment before I got a comment about that. How easy it was to find him, that this man had not changed his name and was living where his father's sin took place. And it was like, I'm open to this happening. And I'm not sure that I would have done the same thing in his place, that I would have maybe changed my name or even moved from my father's apartment that had so many sins in it.
It's a good observation. My reaction is that, one, he probably had no other source of income at that point because he was a drunk. Two, he didn't see any personal shame in it because he was guilty of no crime. So in a way, it's his own blindness of not owning up to his father's role in the war. So we saw, there's a film called something like The Resident and the Renter in the Basement, where a Nazi comes to live in the basement of a French Jewish couple's home in Paris long after the war, and it turns out he was a collaborator. And what does the family do with him? Really interesting film, not a great film. I chose this one instead. Look, people just wanted to get back to their lives. Many of you saw 1945, the black and white Hungarian film we saw about two Jews returning from the camp. And the people in the village were terrified because they thought the Jews were coming to take the property that had been seized while they were sent off. And people, the people in that position who inherited shops and homes and property felt guilty about it and were afraid of having it taken away years later. And in this film, there's even the story of the Teschners. The man in the Alzheimer's hospital says, oh yeah, the Teschners own this shop and they asked me to take it over so it wouldn't be confiscated, to Aryanize it. This was a way of hiding out, like a Marrano Jew in Spain. Here, you take the business, save it for me, and I'll give you half of it, or you'll give it back to me after the war. And that's how they escaped for a while. But that man becomes very important later on. I don't want to get into that subplot of the story, even though it's connected to Georg. So there's a lot of baggage that people who were not directly involved in the Holocaust carry. They knew somebody, that were related to somebody, they inherited some property that hadn't been returned. We all know about the artworks that were seized by the Nazis and found their way into semi-innocent hands. It was such a huge cultural event. It affected everybody in society. And therefore, it affected everybody following, Jewish or not. So, I mean, maybe I'm making apologies for the film if this wasn't clear to people. Maybe you didn't feel all that. But on a second viewing, I really, I saw more of it. I saw more into it than perhaps a first-time viewer would. I'd like to go on. I have some notes I want to call attention to. So talk about damage. When Ali goes back to his home in his apartment, he puts the gun to his head. Now, we don't know if that's a dream or not, because the next shot is him waking up in bed in the morning. But that says a lot about personal damage. He was prepared to kill the man he saw at the door and then to take the consequences of his crime. He was ready to end his life. He's 80 years old, we learn later, and it was time to come clean with his own past. So that's his agenda. Georg's agenda. Georg's agenda is to hide behind alcohol, behind women, behind being flirtatious and outrageous, and making the most of his life that he can. Nothing wrong with that. And just sort of skirting around the issues that really shaped him. So I thought that was an interesting image to show Ali's damage, because he's kind of an inhibited character. But in the bar, they come to an agreement, after Ali says, okay, I'll go, but I cost $100, €100 a day. There's somebody else who offered to buy them off. It's a Jewish assumption there, but I'll find that later. Let's see. We covered the monastery. Berta, the two masseuses that he picks up to drive them because Ali doesn't drive. Very funny group. They have some fun with it. It's kind of a romp, and it's why the description for this film on Amazon said comedy drama. But yet they reached a place with the women. One of them, the other woman, not the heavyset one, says, oh, I've been here before, or I worked in Vienna once for this couple. And while I was in charge of them, they shot each other. Wasn't it great to die for love? And that's a feeling that is ironic to Ali and strange to Georg, but it shows her wound too. And I want to call your attention to every set of people that they meet along the way. It's very calculated, even though some of it is like kind of off the mark, like the two girls. Every encounter they have leads them closer to the scene of the crime, even though they never really uncover where Ali's parents are buried and where the crime was committed. They come close, but close enough for Georg to be changed and for Ali to be his mentor, his guide. And that's the meaning of the title. He's interpreting the Holocaust for Georg. And he's not just translating the words of the other languages. He's saying, this is significant. We have to do this. You must see that. So he's going along with him. It's really Georg's journey. I mean, and literally, and Ali is the interpreter. And why Ali? What's the funny line about Ali says, why did you hire me? He said, for objectivity. So that's a clue to Georg's sensibility, to his intelligence. He knows that he doesn't know the whole story. And he knows that he needs another point of view to come clean with his own traumas and his own history. So this is a very knowing film. It may be verbal. You can say it didn't come out in character. I kind of like bought it all, mostly because the performances were so wonderful. The syncopated swimmers in that swimming pool. Was that a hoot or what? At first you think it's the two girls, from the car, and of course it's not. And at the end they're underwater, and prompting themselves to rise up again. Not quite sure what all that meant. But, and then we have the joke scene where Georg shows up with a mask. He plops his face down on the windshield and it says, I bought a mask for you too. And of course, masks are symbolic, isn't it fun to hide behind a mask with impunity? And of course, Ali wants nothing to do with it. So it's kind of a Mutt and Jeff story, isn't it? Or kind of like Zorba the Greek, where the writer's all inhibited and an uptight Brit, and Zorba is this lusty Greek guy who has sex with an older woman and drinks a lot and eats cherries till he pukes. It's that kind of contrast of characters who manage to find empathy with each other and understanding, despite their differences. The differences are minor. As I said, they're both damaged goods. I think the first progress they make is in the archives. And somebody want to help me, since I'm getting hoarse, about what happened at the archives. The first stop is some bank of letters. I think it's his father's. Georg brings his father's letters with them on the trip, but they also stop for documentary evidence of the crime. And what do they discover there? Come on, am I the only one who saw this film? I'm being hard on you. They found photos of the atrocities. And it's probably the first time that Georg ever saw the corpses that the Nazis left behind. There's several photographs of bodies lined up on the ground. It doesn't mean his father shot them, although it may have been in the vicinity, probably was. It may have been his father's victims. So Jeff, why don't you chime in here now and tell us, in your experience, see, you knew I was going to call on you. You have probably seen first time people who have seen photographs like that for the first time. And how do they react when black and white evidence of the atrocities are put in front of them?
I think they're absolutely horrified. I mean, and they're gasping and stunned, and shocked. Yeah, shocked would be probably the best word to describe it. When you show them, when you show students the liberation of Bergen-Belsen, and you see the photos of them bulldozing bodies into a trench, and students see that for the first time, and they're just, it's, you know, an out-of-body experience.
Well, what do your students ask you when they see it, especially bulldozing piles of bodies? That's pretty horrific. You know,
honestly, I think they don't even have a question for it, because they're so, you know, they're so mortified by what they see.
Yet your students see horror films and sci-fi films where creatures get blown apart all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
But there's a recognition that one is Hollywood and then this is reality, and they understand the difference between the two. I think all of us do.
Oh, I'm not saying we don't, but
no, but they do. They recognize it as well. As many horrible video games they've played are, they recognize the difference. You know, I think that for me, students, you know, the question comes up of when did the Holocaust end? And the reality is, you can say that it ended in 1945, but it didn't. I mean, technically ended in 45, but the trauma still goes on today. And this film demonstrates that, right? I mean, the commandant's had the son, but he also had the daughter, his sister.
Right, good story.
Right, I mean, she dealt with her father's experience in a different way than the son did, and ultimately died of like malnutrition, or she's
name her illness.
Was an anorexia,
self-hatred.
Yeah.
You see, it's like she assumed the guilt of her father, and
right.
Georg had nothing to do with me. I didn't kill anybody. You know?
Right.
And you know, I worked with at the time, about 10 years ago, he was probably in his mid-30s, with a PhD in art history. And I worked with him for several months on the Arthur Schick exhibit in Germany that we had. And I asked him, so how do you, as a, you know, educated contemporary German, how do you feel? And he was very candid. And he said, you know, I feel like it's not I didn't cause it, so I don't feel guilty. He said, but at the same time, I feel we Germans today have an obligation to never forget and never to allow it to be forgotten. I have an obligation to carry forward this legacy and increase the world's understanding going forward. And he's an educator. You know, I haven't been in touch with him for many years, but I appreciated that. And it helped me see my way through, you know, spending all the time in Germany with him that I did. Franken, did that have a question? I'm sorry if I overlooked you.
I think that the scene you recently described where the letters and the pictures are discovered is also a benchmark in the film for another reason. You previously mentioned the hilarity of the scene with the two women and a masseuse, even the synchronized swimming in the pool, etc. A lot of humor. There is no humor after that point.
Don't mention it again.
Yeah, you're right. I think so. I mean, there's a little humor between the two of them because, you know,
but
that's about it.
That burst out loud laughing kind of thing it's a thing of the past. As he learns more about the past and what occurred, it becomes more and more. He becomes more and more serious about what he did.
So it's a bench, right? It's a fulcrum for the film to turn
Yes.
up. It's the beginning of the medicine going down. You can put that way.
Excuse me,
Alfred's?
I think this woman has been trying to talk.
Yes,
Jasmine.
I noticed that, Natalie.
Okay,
So, Alprin's, go ahead.
she's had her a lot. Yes,
I just wanted to say one thing.
here, this is Joel, Jazz.
Natalie, please mute yourself while the others are talking. Thank
All
you.
right. That you're missing.
What I couldn't understand was that the German didn't know what had happened. I mean, didn't know that these things had happened. What happened with the communication in their schools and their history? They didn't know. I understand that he wanted to find out specifically how his father was involved, but he had to be able to translate the fact that his father might have been involved in what went on.
Okay,
I mean,
it's a great question, and I'll let Jeff address that later. My answer is this: don't mistake a part for the whole. Many claim they didn't know what was going on. Many knew, but were too fearful to speak out for fear of repercussions. When I was in South Africa making a film, I asked one of the 3 cinematographers we had, who was 16 years old during apartheid. Apartheid ended in 89, and we were shooting in 99. So maybe he was a little older than that. I said, how could you grow up not knowing where all the Black people went away at night and lived? You know, how could you not see it? And unlike the other cinematographers who said, oh, we didn't know, this guy, who was the youngest of the 3, said, by the time you were 16, you knew. You could tell. You knew the nannies who came to care for you and care for your household. You just didn't ask because you were so young. It was just part of the culture. So people tend not to make waves, you know, and there's another, do you have another question, Marvin?
my wife wanted
Jim,
to
who has a
Do you want to
question?
say something else, Marvin?
mirror me.
I did.
Okay, go ahead.
It is conceivable that the son of a murderer, which was provable that he was a murderer, had a certain mechanism within him on a very personal level, and others did not have it, that he could not hear any more than he was told, that he could not inquire and also be able to accept it or live with himself as the son of this hideous human being. And there are people that need to live in this denial until there comes a point where they can no longer do it. And this is the story of a man who lived in denial through decades, not years, but through decades of his life until he became an elderly man and could no longer do it.
Right. It finally came, he couldn't deny it any longer. Natalie, did you have a comment?
Jim, Julian has a comment.
I have a comment.
Sorry,
No.
Natalie.
This new person, Jasmine. Has been
Please,
raising her
Natalie.
hand.
Hi.
Natalie, I'll
She's
discover
been
in my
raising her
mind.
hand from the beginning.
Okay,
I
please.
see her. Okay.
The motivation for the movie to take place, in my opinion,
Yeah.
is when Ali finds out that he is dying, that he decides that this is the time now that he has to make this move. And I wonder what would have happened if he did not have that diagnosis that he was.
When I'm unfamiliar with the diagnosis you're referring to.
Well, he was, we find out later that he is in hospice care.
No, he's not. He has signed up for hospice.
He has signed up for it.
So that when the time comes, he will be taken care of. That's the conversation with the daughter.
So
He's not in hospice now.
I thought that is
Yeah.
why he had decided that
No.
this was the point in his life when he was going to find this man and address it, because
I think you're right. He's anticipating his own death, and it's time to settle the score.
And also the idea that he's confronting this man who has been living all this time in denial. So, but that I wondered what was his motivation at this time to do it?
Age.
Age.
Just like when shown the proper examples of the effects of the Holocaust, Georg too could no longer be in denial. Remember, we see the gun before any scene proceeds. It's the first scenes of the movie. He packs the gun and he pulls it out in the stairwell. So what causes him, it's not specific. He's reached that time in his life where he doesn't want to live with it any longer. And it's more important for him to take this action, moral or justified or not, is not the issue. For himself, he has to avenge his parents' death and the death of his relatives and other people. But I'm glad you brought that up because it shows how both men have been in denial their whole lives. Ali has been a mild-mannered reporter for the Daily Planet. You know, he's just, you'd never suspect he could kill anybody. But he's had it in him the whole time.
What was he in denial about, Ali?
Well, as I read into it, he wasn't an activist. He was just a mild-mannered interpreter who exchanged languages for money. He didn't get involved. He was, not that he had to become an activist to be moral, but it was eating away at him. He had to do something about it. So his, you know, maybe denial for him isn't quite the word, but he was repressing or holding something back that at least he was more aware of than Georg was aware of in his later years. So I think we're splitting hairs over language here, but they're both victims, they're both damaged, and they both have unresolved feelings. I want to mention something. There are scenes in the hotel bedrooms. Please mute yourselves because we're getting feedback from people. So proper Ali undresses and puts on his pajamas. Can someone describe his pajamas to me? Mitch.
They were striped for the purpose, and he picked them for a purpose. And the producer said, "You're going to wear pajamas just like he did in the camps." And
well, Ali was never in a camp. Ali was.
No, I
never
know. No, he wasn't in the camp.
No.
But
So
when he got into bed, it just was a sterling example of replicating the costume given to his parents. His parents never wore those costumes. His parents were shot before they had those costumes.
Right. But it says to me, it's telling us twice. There are two scenes. His final scene, he's in those pajamas, I think. I could be wrong, but there are certainly two other scenes. He's still a prisoner. He's a prisoner in other ways, you see. So it's like the Holocaust lives on. It's a symbol, I admit, but I thought it was very clever. And the first time I saw it, I didn't get it. You know, in the second viewing, I got it, and you know, it really jumped out at me. So, you know, the film is rich in that way. You don't have to see it to understand his situation. And Natalie, did you have a comment you wanted to make? You're muted, dear.
I was going to save it for later. You like us to sort of
Okay,
go
yeah, let's save it then, if it's about the end. Okay.
It's not about the end. It's sort of throughout the whole. Well, I will say what I was going to say. I was very impressed with the cinematographer of this film. For me, there were many, many shots of the beautiful countryside and the rivers and the mountains and the green grass. And you see the villages off in the distance. Those shots were beautifully filmed throughout the movie. And in the contrast, you knew the horrors that had happened in those little villages, in those little houses, that how could this possibly be that here you have peace and tranquility and nature that was so beautiful. And then you have human beings do the most atrocious things ever to one another. And that is how, when I saw the beauty of the cinematographer, I don't know if other people saw that too, but it happened many times in the film that before you went in to the villages where the people told you about the horrors that happened, you saw the beautiful countryside. That I thought was impressive in the film.
Yeah, well, you know, that countryside was the same as it was before Hitler came to power in 1933. And other people were in love with the idyllic kind of life they had. And
Right.
Hitler made them believe that the Jews were going to take it all away. So it's another symbol of the ugliness underneath the beauty.
Right, right.
You know, but it's a great observation. You're so right. I thought it was gorgeous too. The sense of place, the different villages. It's really a travelogue, but it's better than many buddy movies on the road. Arthur?
Back in 1955, Alan Rene did a film called Night and Fog.
Yeah.
Which really highlighted the beauty of the countryside in which the concentration camps then sprouted. And viewing that film, you're struck by the serenity of the places where these camps were built and thrived. And that was part of the impact of that film. So that what we're seeing in this film, The Interpreter, is really another reflection of that fact, the horrors that went on in this peaceful countryside.
That film is often cited as important. And Jeffrey, if you want to comment on that, but I'd love for you to comment on how was the denial possible among ordinary Germans?
How was what? I'm sorry.
How was the denial possible?
See, here's what I'm struggling with the term denial. I mean, certainly the older generation knew exactly what had transpired. I think that after the war, I mean, in the denazification program, people kind of just went on with their lives, and many of the former Nazis, you know, went back to practicing medicine, practicing law. There were no, there was nothing done to many of these individuals. I think that for the younger generation, and of course they're dealing with communism, for them that then became
the new Nazism.
major issue was communism and not so much Nazism. And I think it took decades until really the film Holocaust, which was a ridiculous, miniseries that aired here in 1973, and it showed in Germany. And then suddenly the younger generation began to ask their parents, what did they do during the war? And then Germany went through a monumental kind of self-reflection, and which many countries still have not done, including the United States has not done an inadequate self-reflection, to the point that you can't go anywhere in Germany today without reminders of some kind of what had gone on. I don't think it was part of the curriculum at the time when George was in school. Only later did that transformation happen. And I don't think there's any country that's done as much to revisit its past and what it had done as Germany. It's just being there a couple of times. I mean, you have these stones in the street that you fall over, that they've placed in front of every apartment where Jews lived. In the center of Berlin is the incredible monuments that they've built that looks like just gravestones after gravestones. I can't imagine in like the city of Chicago having in downtown Chicago some kind of memorial to the Native Americans who perished here. I'm always stunned by Germany's how they've dealt with their past, and they're revisiting of the past and attempting to learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll leave it there.
It's even though there is an anti-Semitic and nationalist revival there, it is one of the least anti-Semitic countries in Europe. I wanted to chime in on that, Jeff, but you covered so much, I don't have to. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. When I was there in 2008, and I arranged to interview high school students from 2.5 hours outside of Berlin. And that was the center of a nationalist revival group that was against the Turkish immigrants who were flooding that area, workers. And I asked them how they felt about the Holocaust. They said, well, you know, these were high school juniors and seniors. And they said, well, it wasn't our war, and we're sick of hearing about it. We've heard about it every year since we've been in public school. And it's true, by law, every German child has to have a unit, a history unit every year on the Holocaust. And they've reached, excuse the bad pun, overkill. It's like it needs to be refreshed in their minds and made relevant. Now, granted, maturity will do that, as somebody has said, that as you grow older, you begin to have a historical understanding. But, and I've said this before, the committee that administers Auschwitz has acknowledged that we have to find new ways of reaching contemporary audiences because the old ways aren't doing it. And this is a recurring theme, a recurring problem, which is why whenever I discover a post-Holocaust film, I say, see, it lives on in us, and this film is wrestling with it. We saw Those Who Remain, the Hungarian film about the 18-year-old girl and the 40-year-old doctor, and we saw Phoenix about the woman who had facial surgery and goes back to see if her husband really did turn her in, and so many films like that. It's like, this is how we keep the past alive, because there aren't many left who were actually there. But the scars are with us very much today.
I thought it was very interesting when they go into the towns and confront the villagers about what had happened. And they're the ones who kind of, oh, I don't recognize any of these photographs and so forth, when clearly they do recognize the people in the photographs. They know exactly what happened.
Is that the guy in the barn smoking the cigarette?
Yes.
Yeah. And they were referred to him. I forgot how they got his name. But how does that scene end? I found it really interesting. He says, no, I don't know them.
Yeah.
Right. And then the wife's, there's a shot of they're slaughtering lambs, and they're hanging upside down. And there's a shot of a lamb's head dripping blood off the nose. And the wife says, would you like to buy some lamb cheese? Oh my God, this is like, their death is all around them. Right.
Well, and it was so much neighbor against neighbor in Slovakia. The Hlinka Guard murdering people in towns.
Yeah, will you tell the rest of us about the Hlinka Guards? You know more than I.
Well, all I can tell you is that the government was run by Tiso, who in Slovakia, who was actually a Catholic priest, of all things. And they were so anxious to get rid of the Jews in Slovakia that they're the only country that paid the Germans to take the Jews and take them to the camps. And that went on for a year or two. And then it stopped, and it wasn't until the Nazis then came in and took over. After there was an uprising in Slovakia, the Nazis moved in, and then they transferred most of the other Slovakian Jews to the death camps and murdered them. I think there were 200,000 or so Jews in Slovakia before the war, and the number today is something like 6,000 or something like that. That's all that live in Slovakia today.
I'm not surprised. I'm surprised there are any.
But Tiso was in charge of the Hlinka guards, so they were brutal in terms of murdering Jews in the towns and villages and deportations.
I want to point out an observation that Georg says to the daughter or to somebody, I forget. We share the same fate, Ali and I. We're doomed to live with our past. I take that. And that's just after he says, you think it's any easier for the son of a murderer than for the son of a victim. So I didn't mean to cut you off, Jeff, but I'd like to move on. That visit to the daughter is interesting because the daughter's a do-gooder too. She couldn't have any children of her own, so she has this home for orphans. And while walking around the property, Georg finds a young boy in a tree, right, who's Ukrainian. I mean, this is close to, you know, the Ukraine. I don't know where Bratislava is, but I suspect it's very close. And I asked for a cigarette, and does your father know you're smoking? And the boy says, I have no father. Right, well, how much does that mirror Georg's feelings right now? When he learned what his father had done, he felt betrayed, right? And he knows, but we don't know yet, that his father's in a semi-coma back in the apartment. And he has no father either. So it makes him empathize with that boy, but also connect with his own abandonment as a child. So he's seeing himself as a traumatic survivor. He's getting in touch with his own pain there. Very understated, but I thought very touching. And this is what I mean about everywhere they go, there's some piece of evidence that reminds Georg of who he is and his place in the world and his father's place in the world. And I thought that was very understated and lovely there. Coming to the end of my notes that I wanted to talk about, it's like this whole trip.
Jim?
Yes, Mitch?
You went over the part where the car was damaged. You passed through that, where somebody broke their window.
Oh, right. Yeah, the boy. Right. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure exactly what scene that was, but they come out and the
It's
window.
after the archives. They come out of the archives and the window's broken.
So, I mean, I guess it's the writer of the movie decided that you should use your imagination as to who knew these people, what they were, and decided to give them a message of hate.
Yeah. Well, no, I think it would have been anybody's car that boy broke into. What that does, it forces, because all of Georg's money and his ID are gone. So it now forces him to be dependent upon Ali for money, right?
Yeah.
And it's only later, where after Ali leaves and goes to the train station on his own, that the money's returned and he has enough money to buy him back. Right? Say, come here, take an advance on the next 2 days. There's a very funny line there where
I don't think we knew who.
maybe that happened earlier, but the objection, it's so funny, the objection isn't that you're a Nazi, but Georg says, I refuse to take the blame for my father. And then Ali says, but you're a brute. You're a crass. That offends me as much as anything else. And they're not friends yet at that point. I don't think they realize they're friends, even on the train station. They say we're not friends, which is much later. Let's go to the hospital, the Alzheimer's hospital. Very telling. They refer to this guy, I forget his name. He bought or took over the shop from the Teschners who were shot, but we don't know that yet. The son says, go away. People come here all the time asking him for his memory, and he has Alzheimer's. He doesn't remember a thing. Leave us alone. But they wait outside the hospital for him. And when the son comes out, they corner him again and say, take a look at these photos. Do you recognize anybody in it? And that kind of breaks the ice with the guy. And he says, I can't help you, but you have a place to stay. So he takes them back to his hotel, which is like deserted, and gives them tea and sugar, and gives them lodging for the night. And the next morning, you don't see the son do this, but they're back at the hospital and they're interviewing the dad.
Jim,
Yes,
just the symbolism of using the bunk beds again.
yes, right. Right, good point. I overlooked that. But the next morning they're at the hospital, meaning the son gave permission for them to go back, and they jog the man's memory, who tells the story of how the Teschners were taken away and shot. Right, so that's another slap in the face for Georg. He thought they were coming close to finding the location where his father actually ordered 100 people to be shot. And Ali was trying also to get close to the place where his parents are buried, even though it's a mass grave, apparently. So all these meetings, you know, you learn from the people you encounter. You've heard how travel makes you deep, or travel makes you broad. I forget what the cliche is, but this is a great road trip. And it occurred to me that what we're seeing here, we're witnessing, you know, you've heard the word, the description, the remnants of the Jewish civilization that were left after the Holocaust. And who's a remnant? And what we're doing is witnessing remnants who are maybe still in denial, and we're witnessing trauma, which is almost a ghost, a living remnant that follows everybody around, as I think Jeff was saying. And this is the point of the movie, to encounter firsthand how close the Holocaust comes to touching us today. It may not be as eloquent for you as it was for me, and that's fine. You know, it's like maybe I saw more into it than I should have, but it's certainly, that's what it made me think of. So it's condemning a whole society, a whole continent, for its denial and its silence during this era. Of course, we can condemn ourselves as Americans for coming into the war so late. We can thank FDR for waiting for the Japanese to bomb Pearl Harbor, or we can, you know, hate him for not making it a Jewish war and calling it out sooner. We can hate the New York Times for bearing it, the news of the camps on page 2 or deeper in the first section. You know, we were all tested. This is such a huge crime, just like in Rwanda, we were tested. And in the Ukraine, we're being tested. And elsewhere, in Armenia and Turkey, everybody's always tested when things of such enormity occurs. And, you know, the film makes us think about what was my role, and not that we're to blame, but what can I do? Does the memory that is passed along to me, what does the information that's passed along to me ask of me? And what do the people who are obviously marked by it mean to me when I encounter them? Arthur? You're muted, Arthur.
The movie was made in 2018.
Yes.
I think very deliberately at the time when European right-wing nationalism was coming to the fore again. And this was really intended for the European audience.
Yes, and remember, the Crimea was seized by Russia in 2014.
Yes, and of course that's part of the movie itself.
Yeah, it's very heavily oriented. There's more than one Ukrainian reference. I think there's one very early in it as well. I looked up Martin Sulik. He's worked only in Europe. That's the director and co-producer. I don't know anything about him, but it would be interesting. He is 60 years old now. 60? No, he was born in 1960. So he's 62 years old now, and an experienced, film director, mostly for television. So I don't know his motivation for doing it, but I just, there's a lot of heavy baggage in here, and it's just, there's so much more. Georg says when his father came back from the war, his mother had a big Sunday brunch for the relatives, and she made soup. And when he finished his cup of soup, he saw a swastika at the bottom. It's like, you can't get away from this stuff. You like the china because your mother-in-law gave it to you? Fine, keep it, but remember what it was. It's like, it's sort of funny. We can laugh at it now, but it's like, it's all around. I think that's the meaning of the symbol. Frank?
And I think that the point,
Yeah,
Hold on, Frank.
that scene or that story was that family really had not grown. They were still quite
Nazis.
accepting of Nazism.
Well, but also interesting in that scene was after the family said hello to each other, they ate silently. They didn't know how to treat is it the prodigal son returning from prison after 8 years, sentenced as a war criminal? They just didn't know how to deal with it.
Jim, what I wanted to say was that you didn't mention, there was one striking scene in the Alzheimer's hospital with a patient who was obviously either a Nazi himself or Nazi sympathizer, and you have Ali feeding him.
Yeah.
Tenderly or whatever,
The
compassionately.
second scene, right, yeah.
While he is reciting the horrors that occurred.
Well, he was the shopkeeper who took over the shop of the Teschners.
Is that who it was?
Yeah, and he tells the story of they took them away and they shot them and buried them in a trench.
Yeah. But I thought that was.
It was touching, right? It shows how Ali has some understanding and forgiveness, especially maybe it's just pity because the man has dementia, but he could go that far.
I also thought in a way that the scenes of the modern hustle and bustle of the larger cities and whatever, and how life goes on and people can forget or not know, and unless it's brought out and reinforced, as generations go on, memory becomes less.
Right. We seek the lowest level of memory when it's inconvenient, when the memory is inconvenient. It's easy to turn away. We do synchronized swimming, or we go flirt with younger women in bars, or, whatever it is. Donna, did you want to say something? I see your hand.
Yes, you asked a question about how can we make a difference today. A lot of the indifference and the denial and all the things that we see in the film, and the beautiful countryside and all the things that are going on in such a beautiful place, how this can grow up. Look at Ukraine today. We've got to do something. We've got to do something. This is just, I wish someone would just get rid of Putin. What can I say? I mean,
well, people said that about Hitler too, but it didn't happen. That's the conundrum.
Yes, I'll learn Russian. I'll go get him.
Okay, you're nominated. I'll give you a plane ticket.
No problem.
I'd just like to turn to the end of the film, because I think the ending was incredibly powerful, with him sitting in front of the trench where it looked like there had been the mass shooting.
That's what I thought it was. I wasn't sure though.
Yeah,
it looked houses around it.
It looked as if that was where the Einsatzgruppen had shot people. Yeah. But I was thinking about, he's sitting there alone. I mean, that scene operated on so many different levels, where there's this kind of divide between him and what he was in the past and what he is now, and the divide between what was before and the Holocaust and what came after. I thought that was a really powerful scene at the end of the movie.
Yeah, it was a bit of a mystery, but I feel the same way, that it was him alone with his own responsibility, and that trench did represent where the bodies were buried. Gail Siegel, do you want to say something? I just noticed your hand up. Okay, you can chime in if you're there. Arthur, want to come back at us?
I thought the music, I thought the music that followed every scene was interesting. Most of it was really very appropriate to what was going on. Some of it wasn't quite so, but they had different music at every single scene, and
transitions.
Interesting.
Yeah, they did repeat the main theme of the film a lot, but they had variations of it, which I thought were interesting. At the very end of the film, I was watching that scene that Jeff just pointed out where he's alone. Did anybody get what the lyrics were? With the
No.
melody? The melody was different. It was Kol Nidre.
Oh, my.
Yeah, right.
Hmm.
Amazing. And then they went to the traditional melody over the credits, but it was a modern version of Kol Nidre. It was stunning. And when you realize what it was saying, it fit the scene better because it was like real movie score type interpretation, but there was vocals and it was clearly Kol Nidre. And I missed that the first time. I thought that was a lovely touch. Can't hear you, Jeff. Are you telling Robbie no more ice cream for me?
I was saying I didn't realize it was Kol Nidre, and that just adds to the importance of that scene of kind of the prayer over the dead in those trenches.
That's right, right. Yeah, I mean, it's not a prayer for the dead, but it's a prayer about guilt and forgiveness.
Yeah.
And how do we move forward when we know guilt?
Right.
And Kol Nidre introduces this holiday that shows us how. Susie?
Right.
You're muted, Susie. You're still muted. You're still muted, dear. Lower left corner. Well, Susie, while you're figuring out.
Here I am. Am I good?
Okay.
I'm good, right?
Miriam, you're next. Yes, we can hear you.
I thought this was a very important film. It was universal. It transcended any date. It could be the future. It could be way in the past. It could be analogous to all cruel parental authoritative people whose children, no matter what country, no matter what age it took place, no matter where it took place, the children specifically have to deal with problems that other progeny do not have to deal with. It made us aware of this. It made it a very all-encompassing, non-specific problem that all progeny have faced, will face, and always will be a part of, which is beyond universal. It has to do with a future. And it reminded me, and I don't think anyone else, just me, I don't know why I thought of it. I thought of the American Indians, how we captured this country, how we treated them, and that our children, including myself as a child, never learned about the truth, never really learned about broken treaties, never really learned how cruel we were capable of being against whole reservations of helpless people. What we learned was the American Indians and the cowboys, good for the cowboys. They always were victims over those horrible American Indians. And many, many movies were made like that until they were stopped. So I'm thinking of this as a strange kind of parallel. And our history books will never be able to look honestly at our mistakes, like putting Japanese in concentration camps. We will never be able to tell the truth to our progeny.
Well, I think that's largely a personal choice. I mean, fortunately, in the more civilized countries in the world, all these subjects are being covered, and there's room for much more coverage. Somebody just gave me a book about a Latvian woman who escaped the Holocaust somehow. And it's like, there's so many, there are millions of untold stories, American Indians, Latvians. There was a huge oppression of the British in India and the Dutch in Indonesia. You know, it's like human beings tend to strive to dominate each other, and it's in our DNA. And we're just, you know, to carry on means we have to like understand why and call it out whenever we see it. Susie, do you have something to add?
Yes, I have something that we haven't covered yet. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't understand the last scene, not the one you just talked about, the one where he comes back and puts the gun on the bedside table next
yes, we
to
haven't
his
talked about it.
father and puts on television the horrible scene of the Nazis talking and whatever. What did he expect his sick father to reach for the gun and kill himself?
Maybe. I think the message of that scene is that he's finally forcing his father to confront what the father did. Maybe not those particular stories of death, but remember, he elevates the father's bed and the father opens his eyes and he starts watching. We can't tell how he's reacting. The gun is like, here, Dad, you can only pay it back by shooting yourself, but he doesn't have to. The point is that Georg finally realized his father's sins and tried to say, I know what you did in the war, Daddy. That's really all it means. Brad, welcome, latecomer.
Well, thank you. And Susie, that was exactly my question. I've really been thinking about that because the father was in sort of a catatonic state.
Yes.
It's not that the father would have been capable of taking his own life, probably much as he would have wanted to at that point, given that he was reduced to that vegetable kind of status. So by putting the gun there and by turning the TV on, it was a type of torture that he was inflicting upon his father. It was a type of sadism that he too had been reduced to as the child of a killer. So it really was I thought very thought-provoking, and it stayed with me, and it sort of haunted me as to you know, trying to understand now I'm sure there are other interpretations of what that scene was all about, but to me that seemed like one.
Yeah, that's a really good observation. I didn't feel like he was being sadistic. I feel like that was Georg's acknowledgement of his father's crimes and acting on it, you know, whereas his whole life he'd done nothing about it. So at least putting up the mirror to his father was somehow a moral act. Putting the gun down, sure, we know what that means, but I forgave it for that. I didn't see it as torture. I saw it. The whole thing, is it an act of anger? I think it's, you know, what do we do when somebody's in a coma or semi-comatose or incapable? It's like praying for a dead relative. They can't possibly absorb what we're trying to tell them, but we do it because we need to do it from inside ourselves. Just my take on it. Jeff, and then Miriam again. Jeff?
I think in a way the film went full circle because the film starts with Ali taking the gun to shoot what turned out to be the father. And so now it's come full circle, and and he's leaving the gun for the father to kill himself.
Mm-hmm. Mitch is giving a thumbs up. Miriam,
just something very quick, please. When Ali first rang the bell and Georg came to the door, he said, I thought rather distinctly, my father died 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I heard him say that, and I believed it throughout the entire film. So the ending with the father being alive,
I agree.
confused me a little and threw me off. Did it happen to anybody else?
Yes, to me too.
Okay, well, the other way of reading it is he was lying. That's part of his denial. Or that's what he used to scare off people who came to the door off. Natalie, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I do, because I was also, as Susie said, I was confused by that scene for many reasons. And one of them, think about that, a beautiful apartment. Think about that beautiful room that the father was in and being taken care of so nicely. Think about the flowers that were in the living room or when you first came in. And I don't know if that was a maid cleaning and sweeping,
Girlfriend.
but this man who we knew had done such horrible things, at the end, why in the film did they make him so comfortable? Why did they make him in such a beautiful situation? I didn't quite connect with.
Well, let me help you with that. Many of the Nazis came back and lived normal, ordinary lives and prospered. And either got at the apartment then, after the war, is an older building, or they were able to purchase it. And being a modest school teacher, he moved in when his father got sick. He couldn't live that way on his own. The woman was a pseudo maid who occasionally vacuumed, but also serviced him. It was his way of playing around. So it's
yeah.
To me, that's a surprise. I can see how it was a surprise to you, but I think it's more telling than it was misleading. It just shows you how in denial Georg was and how easy it was for him to lie to people who came to the door to chase them away. Arthur?
Well, I think the full circle was from the son's initial claim that his father was dead. And in fact, he was protecting his father all those years and taking care of him. And at the end, he was so disgusted with his father. That's what that penultimate scene was showing, that he was forcing his father to look at what he had done and encouraging him to kill himself.
Yeah, he never was able to confront his father before that. So right. just like Ali was never able to.
Himself was in such deep denial.
Right. Okay, any other questions before we wrap it up? Susie, go ahead. Susie.
Yes. I'm unmuted.
Okay. You're already unmuted. Now you're muted.
Okay.
You unmuted.
Unmuted. Okay, think about this. This has bothered me, Brad, related to what I said before. I think that he hated his father so much after what he had learned in this experience with Ali, that to leave him the gun was an easy way, if he had the capacity to use the gun, to kill himself, and that would be the easy way to die. For him to lay in that bed, I'm sorry to say something so gruesome, but to lay in the bed and suffer until he came to his death would have been the best punishment of all. And he didn't do that. Instead, he was making it easy for him. I don't know. It was very confusing to me. That's it.
Well, I hope that.
I think he should have suffered.
With this, I hope that the explanations made it easier for you to absorb the meaning the filmmaker intended. Brad, last comment?
Well, like I said, I just didn't see him as being in, I didn't see the father as being in a physical condition where he could pick up that gun and actually do the deed. So I don't think he put it there to help the father. I think what he did do is put it there to torment the father, because this was something the father would have wanted to do at that point to end his own life. but I don't think the father was capable of doing
No,
that. And yet he was capable of staring at that gun and staring at that TV and seeing these, all the things that he would like to escape from.
Yeah,
But
well,
thank
I
you.
can see your point of view, but the gun is like that symbolic thing. Like, you may not know this, but I'd like you to use this, or, it's like sometimes we talk to the gravestones of our relatives, right? Or, my dog's ashes that we have on a shelf. And you do it for yourself. It may not affect the person, although I agree that the stare, you'd like to read into the father's stare that he was horrified at what he was finally able to be horrified at what he had done. We don't know, but that's not the last scene. That's the next to last scene. And the last scene, I think they felt it was necessary to get away from that. Why end on the dad when Georg alone at the trench, if that's what it was, with himself, with the ghosts of the past, was more eloquent. And then they brought in the Kol Nidre. All right, so I want to talk about our next session is in 2 weeks. It's on the 22nd of October. And there's so many good films coming up. There's some you could see in theaters. If you remember Drive My Car, how complex that was, there's another South Korean film called Decision to Leave. And it's written by the man who directed Parasite and directed by him. Really complex, actually a little more obtuse than Drive My Car. It's a lot like The Third Murder, where a detective is trying to solve a crime, only he keeps coming across the same woman who he thinks has killed her husbands. And he has to figure that out, and he's personally attracted to her, but does nothing about it. Very complex film, very well acted. And then there's a film I just saw yesterday called School Ties. Goes back to 1992 when we were all kids, right? And you will see a very young Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and Brendan Fraser playing kids at a WASPy prep school in Massachusetts. And of course, Brendan Fraser is the Jewish quarterback ringer they bring in so they could finally beat St. Luke's, because the alumni are demanding it. And of course, his dad tells him, keep it close to the vest, don't let anybody know you're Jewish if you can. And of course, the word eventually gets out, and that's the story. It's a very old school kind of film, but it's great to see these actors when they could really do something. Brendan Fraser is just terrific. And it made me think of Gentleman's Agreement, which we saw several years ago, where Gregory Peck goes underground pretending to be a Jew to see how people will treat him. And the indictment of that film at the end is, you people, the silent ones who don't speak out against it, you're really as guilty as the ones who perpetrate it. And I found Brendan Fraser here to be as eloquent as Gregory Peck, if you can believe that, in his retorts when he's confronted for being a Jew. It's like, God, I wish my kids had said that to any bullies who spoke up to them. Of course, we don't live in those times, and we live in Brentwood, so you don't encounter that. I've rarely encountered it in my life. So if you're in the mood for something that's a little on the lighter side, I think it's Brendan Fraser, even though it's anti-Semitism. Or heavier, we can go in any number of directions. Anybody feeling what they'd like to see?
School Ties. School Ties.
School Ties? Oh, you like the guys, huh?
Yeah.
They're adorable. They're adorable. They're all like 21 years old.
So am I.
in spirit. So I'm always open to your suggestions. I do spend my free time looking at movies, and it's a dirty job, but somebody has to do it. So I'll let you know by the end of this coming weekend, so you can prepare for it. But thanks. This was a good discussion, lively discussion. I'm so glad most of you liked the movie. I think it's one of those little gems that's terribly important for people to see, because it just speaks to so many people and so many generations. So thank you, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great week.
Well, I'm not sure that that was the
He
question.
didn't ask.
Yeah. I think he said, I'm glad some of you like the movie.
No, he said, I'm so glad you all. I'm not a you all.
You all. You all.
The Jews, the second generation Jews, but the second generation Nazis.
Second generation.
Yeah, well, they're all Nazis. But,
I was very, I was thinking about how sad it is that none of our children.
well, I never got one. She had told me that she was going on the senior. Right.
She went to the senior prom. Getting interrupted. What you doing?
Well, I was waiting for you to decide whether we're gonna be in here or,
I think we should be in here.
huh?
I think we should be in here. I think we might watch regular television.
Let's see, and her doubts.
This is what Sports Center shows. This is what ESPN shows. It wasn't something that I even knew to question. Most sports you watch on TV feature men's teams, but it's not a lack of female athletes coming up. Women's teams get less time on air, and how one media outlet hopes to change the game.
Young Shelton.
It's your journey to
They still
Visit buyhyundai.com. We're
He's getting too old.
today.
We're gonna
Sitting
find
in a
out.
car one day, an 18-wheeler brewing.
Come on in. Ghosts premieres tonight on a big Thursday premieres on CBS. Untitled season premiere begins now. Previously on Young Shelton. Take some time off. Hold on. Are you firing her? Yeah.
Georgie and I ran into a little problem at the border.
What?
Mexican one.
What?
Who is it? Arrested? What do you mean arrested?
I don't know. It's probably custody.
What were they doing in Mexico?
I don't know.
Why didn't they tell us they were going?
How many times we gotta say I don't know?
Oh, God, what do you know?
Well, they're probably gonna have to pay you some fine. I don't in cash.
My son is going to be in jail overnight.
What about your mother?
Oh, she's been there before. I was in jail. No.
Forget about it?
Forget about it. Do I need to remind you I remember my birth?
Do you really?
That was a rough day. Rough day for me.
Right here.
You see what I say? What? Get out the window. You want to make a run for it? You got a better plan? Yes. You shut him up.
Son of a bitch. You sure?
Give me some seltzer. I can get that right out. Sorry.
So, smuggling cigarettes.
Your Honor, there was no smuggling. This is a misunderstanding.
400 cartons of undeclared cigarettes.
Was that over the limit?
By 399.
I told you not to talk.
He told you not to talk. All right, here's your options. Plead not guilty, post a bond, come back here for a trial, which you will lose because you're guilty.
Or
Plead guilty, pay your fine, and I'll never see your face again.
we get the cigarette back, right?
No.
How much is the fine?
Why don't we say $2,500?
Let's say 500.
This is not a negotiation.
I hear you. 750.
We're done. Leon, get these clowns out of here.
Your Honor, please. I really need those cigarettes back. My girlfriend's gonna have a baby and I was gonna sell them to help pay for the medical expenses.
That's a touching story. Leon! Sorry, too much mind to do. Take him back to Holden.
Now I got $1,000 and you can keep my grandson. What is happening to our family?
No, Georgie and Mima in jail.
Mom getting kicked out of the church.
Georgie having a baby out of wedlock. You know what this means, don't you?
What?
We really are white trash.
Speak for yourself. I'm in college on a full ride. But I wish y'all luck.
I really appreciate this, smuggling. Cigarettes? What the hell was she thinking? It was Georgie's idea. Oh, that makes more sense. Well, whose track we taking? You coming? My ex-girlfriend in jail at the Mexican border? I gotta take a picture. All right, I'll drive. But we gotta stop and get film.
Who's you spying on?
Nemo's house. There's a strange woman loitering on her porch.
Let me see.
Should we call the police?
Nah, she's too pretty to be a burglar.
I don't think that's how that works.
Connie, are you okay? All right, I'm coming in. Freeze, dirtbag.
Who are you? No, we have the moral high ground here.
Yeah, who are you? I'm a friend of the lady that lives here. I'm worried about her.
That's no lady, that's her Mimo.
Are you Georgie's brother and sister? Yeah. I'm Mandy. I'm Mandy. Oh, really? Yeah, really. And I'm worried about your Mima. Well, you don't have to be. She's fine.
She is?
Yes, Sheldon, she is.
So she's not in jail?
She's in jail?
Well, I thought so, but maybe not.
Just when you.
We have ourselves a guest. Part of Big Thursday premieres on CBS.
So why is Connie in jail? That's family business.
Although Mandy is carrying Georgie's baby and Georgie's also in jail, so
Georgie's in jail? Why are you still talking?
that is a valid question. It's past my bedtime.
Good, go.
Nice meeting you.
So what happened? All I know is they had a problem at the border. Something about smuggling cigarettes. Idiot. Hey, he was just trying to make money because you got pregnant. Oh, so this is my fault. He didn't make that baby on his own. Look, you're just a kid, okay? You don't understand what's going on here. I know my mom lost her job and got kicked out of the church because you won't marry my brother. I didn't know that. So, did I win this argument? Feels like I did.
Okay, God, we need to talk. Are you testing me? Is this a test? Am I Mrs. Joe?
Yeah.
I try to be a good person, but lately it feels like you are smacking me down every chance you get. And I know that that might sound a little ungrateful right now as I load my new dishwasher that I love. But can't you pick on someone else for a while? Who are you talking to? God? To yourself, got it. And you think, like Job, God is testing your faith? Sure would explain all the bad things that have been happening. So believing in a God who's going out of his way to ruin your life is more comforting than believing there's no God at all. Isn't it past your bedtime? I know, good night. Wait, where's your sister? Ed Nemo's talking to Mandy. What? Why? Can we table this for tomorrow? I'm running on fumes.
So instead of traveling around the country with me, she'd rather smuggle cigarettes and rot in jail. What the hell's that supposed to make me feel? I don't know. Damn right, Dad. Treated that woman like a queen. Didn't you break up with her? That was a bluff. Never thought she'd call. They are coming to her rescue. Maybe that's the third thing. Who said they want her back? Great, you don't want her back this time. And we'll say one thing. This is sex. Oh, God. She is audacious. And not just for a woman her age. Oh, look, a hitchhiker. Just pick him up. Maybe he'll kill me.
Do you hate Georgie? No, Georgie's a good guy. If anything, I hate myself for making bad decisions. Like having sex before marriage. Like having tequila before sex.
Hey, what's going on here?
Mandy was just telling me how she got pregnant. No. But you said no. Are Georgie and Connie okay?
I hope so. My husband just went down there to get him out.
Okay, that's good. Guess I'll get going. It was nice seeing you. I'm sorry about your troubles with the church. What did you tell her? Just the highlights. Oh, I forgot I punched out a kid in Sunday school.
You don't have to tell her all that.
Maybe she'll feel guilty and marry Georgie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They held it up. I'm so good. Kid ain't even born yet, I'm already a terrible father. You're not terrible. A terrible father would have walked away. Thank you. Was my dad real pissed off? No. He was positively giddy about having to drive 8 hours down to the border to bail your ass out. Your ass too? Yeah, but I like it when he's pissed at me. This will be a cool story to tell my kids someday. Sure. Oh, you know what would be awesome? If it was a boy, we name him Winston. You know, like a cigarette? And if it's a girl, we could name her Virginia. Virginia Slims. Okay. I think that's enough of you for now.
Evening, Mary.
Evening.
How come George ain't taking out the garbage?
Please, I am perfectly capable of taking the trash cans out.
Of course. You are a woman, hear you roar. I sure hope we're still gonna see you all in church tomorrow.
Thank you. I'll think about it.
How's Georgie and his young lady friend?
Great, they're great.
Is that the one from the church?
Has anything changed vis-a-vis their nuptials?
No, baby's gonna be a bastard. That's what you're implying, isn't it?
Yeah. Not a word I like to use, but most important, a happy, healthy
bastard.
What you said.
Good night, Pastor.
God bless.
What's that out?
Yeah,
I can't sleep.
me neither. This whole man is a mess.
If you mean the nomenclature, I agree.
Norman
Nomenclature, the system of devising or choosing names for things. For example, if Mandy and George were married, she'd be our sister-in-law.
who? But they're not.
Exactly. So we need a term for the unmarried mother of our future niece or nephew.
How about Mandy?
Follow me. If we knew the sex of the baby and it was a boy, I was thinking we could call Mandy neph-uterus because she'd be having a nephew in her uterus. However, niece uterus just doesn't get the ear right.
I still think Mandy works.
Now, there is a gender-neutral term coined by linguist Samuel Martin in the 1950s, which takes the in from niece or nephew with sibling to get nibbling.
So she'd be our nibbling?
No, the baby's the nibbling. Meaning would be either the nibbling guest or the nibbling girl. Or, in a swerve from our traditional German suffixes, nibblingo.
That one.
Oh yeah, that one's the winner.
Sadly, nibblingo never quite caught on, but that doesn't stop me from using it in Scrabble. This is gonna be my Christmas card.
What the hell? What are you doing here?
I'm saving you. Think I got that kind of cash laying around? You doesn't. That's why I'm saving.
Well, damn.
Georgie, come on.
I'm on that.
Now,
Okay.
mine's paid. Let's go.
I'm really sorry about this, Dad.
Don't find the card. That's just you and me. Yeah, it is. Because I'm saving you.
Doesn't seem very good.
We should tell everyone, we just switched to Verizon's new.
Well, because he died.
Like that. The new season of Ghosts of Ice Next.
On to the big face taking hits on CBS.
I know I messed up. And I'm gonna pay you back every penny. You get that I was doing this for the baby, right?
I do.
Which, when you think about it, could be a reason to be proud of it. Take time, think about it.
Pictures developed, you want copies?
No.
Jail makes you crazy. Still haven't heard, thank you.
Thank you.
Those are the words. Just not feeling it.
I'm tired. I'm sorry. I'm embarrassed. Could we just please not?
You have to join any gangs when you're in there?
Can I ask you something?
What?
Were you scared when Mom got pregnant with me?
I was terrified. Why, you scared?
Yeah.
Good. You're full of water.
I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's expected of me. At least you and Mom got married and were a team.
Yeah, you got it rougher than me.
Does it ever stop being scary?
I got a call from the Mexican border. My son was in jail. What do you think? Purple. It's not all scary. There's fun parts.
Like what?
Went to the beach once. That wasn't bad.
Well, regardless, it's happening. I'm gonna be a dad.
Yes, you are.
I hope I'm as good a dad as you are.
Don't try to butter me up.
You saw that, huh?
I saw.
Boy, you are smart.
Just to be clear, I'm gonna pay you back every cent.
Don't worry about it.
I am worried about it.
Well, think of the money as a gift. And I'm gonna be holding over your head.
Well, that doesn't work for me. How about when we get home and make it up to you?
Now, hold on. You wanna wipe out a $2,500 debt with one roll in the hay?
Are you saying I'm not worth it?
I'm saying it's a lot of money.
Well, my offer's off the table.
Oh, wait a minute, hang on.
Too late. Too late.
Yeah, I was thinking a fair price would be $500 or more.
Well, isn't that what a girl wants to hear?
Same fair to me.
Do you think Georgia got a tattoo in jail?
No,
Do you think Meemaw did?
probably.
Are we going to church
I'm going.
after everything that happened? Isn't that weird?
Doesn't matter. I need to.
I'll go with you.
You don't have to.
I want to.
What? This isn't where we sit. It's all right. All right, this is nowhere near the acoustic sweet spot. Shush. Yeah, I'm sitting behind what many people who are just man in Texas. Shh.
Dear friends, let us love one another. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. It means that we are responsible for sharing that love with all those around us. Now let's join hands and pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for gathering us here today to join together in worship. Give us the strength to reflect your abundant love out into the world. Thank you for bringing us here today to join together in worship.
Excuse me. Am I the only one struck by the incredible hypocrisy of this sermon?
You go on and on about loving one another and how God is love, but not when it comes to my mother and our family. And why? Because my brother impregnated a woman 11 years older than him, which one could argue was an act of love. At least at his part. She doesn't seem to care for him. Also, earlier you said Nebuchadnezzar. In Hebrew, we pronounce Nebuchadnezzar. More in the back of it. She goes, fine. Or in Hebrew, shalom, which also means hello and peace. In Hebrew?
You are free.
So help me tell.
How's mom?
Pretty upset.
Even after that excellent speech I made?
For once, I don't think you're the problem.
Good for me. I'm reading.
Hi there, Missy.
May I help you?
I was hoping to talk to your mom. She around?
I'm not sure. Let me see if she's available.
What's going on?
She's available.
Hello?
Mary, I am so sorry about today. I understand why you're upset, but the church is still your family. I just hate to see you walk away from the Lord.
Feels like he's walking away from me.
It's official. Report.
We're fine.
Actually, just eat.
Do you want to phrase you need money to make money? No. Well, it's a phrase. Still.
The latest on the deadly attacks tonight.
Previously on Young Show.
Mary, I want to sex you up.
I have good news.
If I could use it.
I got a job at the bowling alley
Work with Brenda?
every day.
I am so sorry about today. I just hate to see you walk away from the Lord.
Feels like he's walking away from me. What is that? Hamburger helper?
It's official. Report.
We're not poor. There's hamburger in there. There's hamburger in there, right?
I like hamburger helper. It really does help your hamburger make a great meal.
Well, it's a good thing you like it, because you're definitely poor. Like us.
We're fine.
Actually, just eat. Do we still say grace?
Why not?
Mom's been taking a break from the church. Mom? Well, I haven't really thought about it, but you can if you want to.
That's not.
As meaningless as it is, I do find the ritual comforting.
Well, somebody make a decision. That sauce getting cold.
No, it's good cold or hot. A great match.
Ooh, can I say it?
Sure.
Bless us, Lord, for the food we're about to receive, and bless the hands prepared it. And let me have a good hair day for school pictures later this week.
See what else I want. Wrap it up.
And please let my dad find a full-time job before we lose cable. Amen.
Amen.
Use genuine Honda parts and free multi-point inspections to keep your Honda.
These students are half my age or twice as smart. Let's find out how they know so much.
Oklahoma advanced by defeating their bitter rivals, Texas. They're led by Niven and Rangoon, who I relate to being surrounded by a Peyton and an Eli, and a supportive father.
What's prepared me most for being on college football is playing quiz games with my dad on TV all the time. And now it's really cool because he's going to get to watch me on TV while I play quiz games.
And like that other Peyton, Peyton Armstrong has been fueled by a bit of sibling rivalry.
I have a big family, 2 older sisters and 2 little brothers. Lots of chaos in the house, so I feel like I naturally have to be competitive. It's kind of in my DNA that I finally get to bring it into college football.
Eli Martin's wide range of passions really paid off. Really? Russia is correct. I
still played football, and then I also did theater and academic team. Doing all that really prepared me for a college role.
Hoping to beat the Sooners is Penn State, led by animal guru Captain Emma Foley.
I love African Dixie frogs, otters, elephants, birds. So it's really cool to explore all different species of animals and see how they're all interconnected and similar to us and how they live.
Teammate Ryan Zhang is also fascinated by animals, but mostly the extinct ones.
When I was in first grade, I was really into dinosaurs. I'd stay in from recess, which is kind of nerdy, I guess, and read about dinosaurs. So hopefully in this next game, there will be a dinosaur question.
And Levi Showalter's farming background helped him plow through the agriculture subject.
Rice, orchard, and aquafarming.
Is correct.
My family has a farm that I grew up on. I had the opportunity to work with raising all different kinds of plants and animals, and a lot of what I've displayed on the show is things that you learn by doing, not just by reading. We are
Penn State!
In college, more like in life, the more you know, the further you go. So Peyton, what was the moment that inspired you to be a social worker?
Well, my family's been fostering children since I was 3 years old, and getting to see my parents help those kids and get them placed with loving families really instilled that helping spirit in me.
That's impressive. Levi, so word on the street is you raise chickens.
Yes, I do, Cooper. I live at Penn State's poultry farm on campus, raising all different kinds of chickens and turkeys for meat and eggs.
I believe you.
Good luck. Let's start the night off by playing a game that's near and dear to my heart. Let's play the kickoff. All right, here's how it works. I'll ask a question to both teams. The first team that buzzes in with the correct answer scores 10 points and takes possession of the subject. Then that team gets 2 follow-up questions. We tossed a coin before the game, and Penn State, you get the first choice of one of these 4 subjects.
No. You can move it louder.
No, I'm gonna get rid of the,
What?
I'm getting rid of the captions.
On the water, rebellions, reading is everywhere, so dramatic.
I don't know.
Let's just do that, yeah.
We'll go with reading is everywhere.
These are questions about reading that don't involve novels and stories. Kickoff question coming to both teams. Good luck. Rods, cups, and swords are common suits in what type of cards used to read fortunes? Penn State, Emma.
Tarot cards.
That is correct. Good stuff, Penn State. 10 points on the board, possession as well. Couple of follow-up questions coming your way. Every good boy does fine is a common mnemonic device used in the process of learning how to read what?
We'll go with sheet music.
That is correct. Teaches you the lines on the treble clef going up. You do that, right?
I prefer onomatopoeia.
Of course you do. Next question. In the blood pressure reading 120 over 80, 120 is the systolic number, while 80 represents what other type of blood pressure?
Our answer is diastolic.
That is right, Emma. Way to go. A little sweet there to start off the game by Penn State. Still going to be your pick. We'll be adding a new subject, celebrity chefs. What will it be?
We'll go with rebellions.
Rebellions it is. Kickoff question coming to both teams. In response to an increasing Western influence, the Boxer Rebellion of 1900 took place in what Asian country? Oklahoma, yet?
China.
That's correct. Oklahoma on the board. Good work, Nathan. Y'all have possession, 10 points. Here's your follow-up question. Considered the first test of U.S. federal power, a 1794 protest over taxes is known by what name that includes a distilled liquor?
I think that'd be the Whiskey Rebellion.
That would be right. Good work.
Nathan, I can assure you, if I'm starting a rebellion, whiskey will be involved.
Write that down, Nathan. That's good advice. Second follow-up question coming to you. In 1549, a rebellion began in 2 English counties over the adoption of a religious text known as the Book of Common what?
I think we're going to go with Book of Common Sense.
That is incorrect. Can we steal Penn State?
We'll go with the Book of Common Prayer.
That is correct. Way to go, Emma. Good steal there. Good work there, Ryan and Levi. One more subject. We have chemistry, and because you got the steel, it's your pick, Penn State. What do you want to play?
We'll play We Have Chemistry.
We have chemistry. The logo for what television drama prominently features the chemical symbols for bromine and barium? Penn State Emma.
Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad is correct. 10 points on the board, possession as well. Here's your next question. In 1985, scientists discovered the buckyball, the third known form of pure carbon, following diamond and what mineral?
We'll go with graphite.
Go with it correctly. Graphite is right.
Hey, I just wanted you to know that as a young lad, my most precious toys were my buckyball and my hacky sack.
That's why you and I had no chemistry, because of an answer on that. And the last question. Within a span of 2 years, what English baronet became the first to isolate sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium as substances?
Say Priestley, but that man's Christy. It's
Gonna need an answer.
Henry.
That is incorrect. Oklahoma for the steal.
Judge the sentence. I will go with Hook.
Love that guess. That is incorrect. Sir Humphrey Davy was the correct answer. I'm sure Cookie knew that one.
He's an old friend.
All right, folks, that does it for the kickoff. Let's take a look at where our team stands. Penn State was 60, Oklahoma.
This is not the Jasmine style.
This year's college bowl. Former Sooners. Let's go Sooners!
It's time for the handoff. Here's how it works. The teams will take turns answering questions. But now, each question will have exactly 3 answers. The goal is for each teammate to provide a correct answer and then hand off the question down the line. You'll earn 20 points for each correct answer. Here are the subjects you'll be playing. Going global, Bills, 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 the royal family. Oklahoma, you're behind. You have the first pick.
Okay. We'll go with Bills, Bills, Bills.
Bills, Bills, Bills it is. All right, 16 possible points out there. Peyton, we'll start with you. Here's your handoff question. The Bureau of Engraving and Printing currently issues 7 denominations of paper currency. Name the 3 highest values.
I'm gonna go with 50.
Correct. 20 points. Yeah.
I'll go with 100.
Also correct. Now another 20 points. Eli for the sweep.
I'm gonna go with 20.
Got away. Nice clean sweep there. Just like that, you take the lead, 80-60.
It's all Bitcoin for me, baby.
Yeah, that's what I figured. All right, Penn State, it's your turn to choose a subject. Take a look at the board. We're going to be adding NASA knowledge. It's going to be.
I'm comfortable. We'll do going global.
Going global it is. Levi, we'll start with you. Here's your handoff question. What are the 3 smallest continents by land area?
Australia.
Correct. Emma.
Europe.
Also correct. Another 20 points. Ryan, one more for the sweep. Antarctica. Absolutely right. Oklahoma, your team's choice again. Got a new subject up there. Long, long ago. NASA knowledge. The royal family still up there.
I will go with long, long ago.
Long, long ago. Nathan, we're going to start with you this time. Here's your handoff question. The Mesozoic era is divided into 3 periods. Name them.
Cretaceous.
Correct. Eli.
Jurassic.
20 more points to tie it up. Peyton for another sweep.
Triassic.
Absolutely right. 100% completion percentage here. Hey,
I was much more comfortable with the 70s era.
I get it. All right, Penn State. One more subject up there. Intro to color theory. Emma, NASA knowledge, the royal family. What's the pick?
We'll do color theory.
All right, intro to color theory. Emma, you're up first. Here's your handoff question. When combined in equal amounts, 3 primary additive colors form white light. Name them.
Red.
Correct. Right.
Green.
Yep. Levi.
Whoa.
Yet another perfect score. These teams are trading 60-pointers back and forth. I mean, is anybody gonna miss? This is impressive here. All right, back to you, Oklahoma. This is your last pick of the board. One more subject up there. Character study. What's it gonna be? Give us the call.
Hey, we'll go to character study.
Character study. Eli, you're up first. Here's your handoff question, pal. To Kill a Mockingbird centers on the Finch family, a father, daughter, and son. Name these 3 characters.
Abacus.
There you go. Peyton. Right.
Jared.
Awesome. What else to say? Awesome. Good. Still a flawless round by both teams. The competition is really heating up here. All right, Penn State, your final turn. You got a new one up there. Par for the course. What are we thinking, Ryan? Everybody, Levi?
We'll do NASA knowledge.
NASA knowledge it is. Ryan, you're up first, pal. Here's your handoff question. Atlantis and Endeavour were 2 out of 5 of NASA's space shuttle fleet that flew between 1981 and 2011. Name the other 3.
Challenger.
Challenger's correct. Levi.
Columbia.
There you go. Lead is yours again. Emma, to finish a perfect round.
Discovery.
Absolutely right. Perfection, not one miss in that round. Well done. All right, let's see where the team stand here after the handoff. Penn State with 240, Oklahoma with 200, and up next, we've seen them do it at Beaver Stadium and Owen Field, but can they do it at the Capital One College Bowl? It's Penn State and Oklahoma's final drive downfield in our 2-minute drill. Find out who wins after the break.
What's Penn State Stadium? I thought they said Beaver.
Gillette, the best a man can get.
Hi, I'm Brandon Mason, and I'm hosting SNL this week with musical guest Willow.
Willow, it'd be a great show. Tune in to find out. What? Sorry, I've never done this before. I'm freaking out.
You did great.
Get back in Beaver Stadium. Penn State with 240, Oklahoma with 200. And I know a thing or two about the next game. It is time for the 2-minute drill. Each team will have 2 minutes to answer as many questions as they can. Correct answers are worth 25 points. Plus, you'll earn 100 bonus points each time you get 5 questions right. Penn State, you're in the lead. You'll be playing first. Emma, don't can deliberate. The final answer has to come from you after you buzz in. 2 minutes on the clock. You guys ready? Good luck. Penn State, your 2-minute drill starts now. In John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath, what iconic U.S. highway is referred to as the Mother Road?
Route 56.
Correct. What cosmetics chain was acquired in 1997 by LVMH, the company that owns Louis Vuitton? Sephora. Based on the additive inverse property rule, a number added to its opposite results in what?
0.
Correct. What part of the human brain connects the spinal cord to the forebrain?
Pass.
STEM. What verb-related term refers to an outgoing politician still holding office whose successor has already been correct? What What term for a printer's proof in publishing also refers to the captain on a ship, galley, suggesting a link between body and mind? What term describes a physical illness brought on by someone taking medicine? Correct. The Aztec or the Inca? Which of these empires was centered in what is now Mexico? Correct. The WhatsApp logo is a word bubble with what device inside? Telephone. In 1994, Tanya Harding was implicated in an attempt to injure what rival Olympic skater? Nancy Kerrigan. What specific type of doctor is trained to manage a patient's pain and vital signs during surgery? Anesthesiologist, found mainly in Central and South America. What armored mammal comes in 3, 6, and 9 minutes? Correct. Creating an encrypted tunnel for data. What three-letter service protects users by allowing remote access to a server? Correct. A ballet called the Firebird marked the first international success. What? Stravinsky. What shaving brand still bears the last name of the disposable razor? Correct. Adding chemicals to clouds to increase precipitation is what? Correct. A 15-year-old boy narrates Mark Haddon's debut novel, The Curious Incident of what animal at nighttime? Dog. What Jordan landmark is nicknamed the Rose Red City because of the stone? Correct. In trigonometry, COS is the abbreviation for cosine, and COT, cotangent. Invented by Dow in 1941. Resistant material. Correct answer was styrofoam. And the time is up. I'm out of breath. Wow. Solid performance there, Penn State. Never how'd you guys feel?
I have no words to explain.
You're out of breath as well. Good teamwork there, Levi. Way to go. Pretty impressive.
That was very impressive. And Emma passed a fair amount of time. She didn't know it. She passed, move over the one she knew. Well executed.
She passed quickly. All right. You got 10 questions correct, bringing your total score to 690. And now, Oklahoma, it is your turn to tackle the 2-minute drill. To win this match, you'll have to answer 12 questions correctly. Nathan, you guys feel up to it?
Yeah, Peyton, we feel more ready than ever.
All right, let's put those 2 minutes on the clock. Oklahoma, your 2-minute drill starts now. Broadway shows and startup businesses often seek out what heavenly type of investor?
Angel investor.
Correct. A feat of engineering when it was first built. The Erie Canal connects the Great Lakes to the Atlantic via what river? Correct. In a sentence, my team will win because we're the best. What part of speech is because? Conjunction. What brand of bandages and braces by 3M is also something you can find in a deck of playing cards? Ace. Known for its distinctive shape, what 8,800-foot granite rock formation is located in Yosemite Park? Half dome. Cytology is a study of what basic biological units of life? Correct. ENFJ is a possible result of what? Myers-Briggs. Powering Android. What operating system featured a penguin named Max? Correct. Leonidas da Silva is credited with inventing the bicycle kick in what sport? Soccer. Finner and the Running Man are two of the books Stephen King wrote under what pseudonym? Richard Bachman. In the world of finance, what does ROI stand for? Correct. Parody or satire. What term refers to a body of work that imitates another without offering criticism about the world? Correct. What desert in the south of Africa provided the filming location for the series? Correct. What two-word term denotes the political, military, and ideological barrier erected by the Soviet Union after World War II? Correct. An unfinished globe made of jigsaw puzzle pieces is a logo for what informational website founded in 2001? Correct. In 1939, what English king overcame a speech impediment for an address to his country? George VI. What Japanese martial arts Brazilian variant involves grappling and fighting? Correct. What game is analyzed in a book subtitled The Math Beyond the World's Most Popular Pencil Puzzle? Sudoku. Oklahoma, you got 10 questions correct, which unfortunately is not enough to overtake Penn State. Penn State, you just won your quarterfinals match. You got to move on.
A little flustered, but glad to be through that.
Absolutely. Eli, talk about your college bowl experience, pal.
Yeah, coming here from being a small town in Oklahoma, it's kind of a big shell shock, but it was a lot of fun, and I was really glad to meet Peyton and everybody else, and it was a blast. Would trade for the world.
Cool. Your thoughts?
I was hoping he was like me, but I'll get over it, Eli.
All right, Oklahoma, you played an excellent game, but you're not going home empty-handed. Our friends at Capital One have generously provided each of you with $10,000 in scholarship money. Thank y'all for being with us. Peyton, what can this money do for you in your education?
Well, hopefully in the future, I'll be a licensed clinical social worker and I'll be able to work in hospitals and behavioral and mental health.
Congratulations, you guys are awesome. Best of luck. Up next, two schools known for big-time basketball step into the bowl. It's Duke versus Syracuse, Coach K versus Coach Boeheim. So get ready. Duke and Syracuse are about to battle in an all-ACC showdown. That's next. The Capital One College Ball continues.
So I mistook the bed at the end. I didn't realize that was his father. I thought he was taking care of the old man. Jew.
No, I think he walked in and the woman greeted him.
Right.
You know,
His servant.
yeah, sir. And so I knew that it was at his house, so. And
Yeah,
then,
I knew that.
and then the guy in bed, I didn't recognize at all. He was like older, bolder, and
Well, what happened to the Jew?
didn't he go back? Where he came from?
I thought he was in the hospital. Remember his daughter came?
Right. Then that's where they left him. In the hospital. The daughter came, left him in the hospital.
Okay.